This is Aputure's new high-powered budget light, the Amaran 200D. I was lucky enough to get my hands on a version of this light that has some of the fixes Aputure did in response to some issues brought up in earlier reviews. Let's get into it. The 200D is a 200-watt daylight balanced LED light. I was sent this light to review, but no money changed hands, and these are my honest thoughts. If you don't believe me, well, don't let the door hit you in the on the way out. Unlike Aputure's more expensive lights, you're not going to get a carrying case with this light. You're getting the light itself, the reflector, and a power cable. And that's pretty much it. I mean, I guess you could use the box as a carrying case if you wanted to, but I certainly wouldn't show up to a client shoot carrying your gear around in a retail cardboard box. If you want to remotely control the light, you're going to need to use the Sidus Link app on your mobile device because no remote control included with this one here. So this light is plug-in power only. Aputure does sell a 2-bay battery station you can use with this light, and it'll run you about $180. Plus, you're also going to need to purchase 2 V-mount batteries as well, because as I understand it, you can't power the light with just a single battery attached to the power station. So now your costs are creeping upwards of $700 or more, depending on the cost of the batteries that you get. Or you can buy one of these portable power stations that has a plug-in power port. If you do decide to go this route, make sure you get one that provides pure sine AC power. Don't mess around here. You will damage your expensive lighting gear if you're not using a pure sine power source. When you compare the prices, one of those little portable power stations is actually a bit of a cheaper option. Of course, it doesn't look quite as slick as Aputure's power solution. It is, however, a whole heck of a lot cheaper. I did notice something interesting when I plugged the 200D into this power station. When you cranked this light up to 100%, it was actually drawing closer to 240 watts of power. Just something to keep in mind when you're shopping around for a power station. Speaking of power, one little touch I appreciated was that the plugs on both ends are actually locking plugs. And you can hang the power brick from your light stand with this little metal cable here. The cord going from the brick to the fixture is pretty long, but the one going from the brick to the power outlet, way too short. The controls on the 200D, super straightforward. You have the on-off switch. You also have a Bluetooth reset button if you have any problems connecting it to the Sidus Link app. Then just a single knob. Rotate it to control the brightness, and press in the knob to jump up in power at 20% increments. Now, you've probably heard this before, but the Sidus Link app is actually really excellent and might be one of the biggest selling points of this light as well as other Aputure lights in their ecosystem. Using this app is where you control the special effects of this light because you can't control it from the light fixture itself. You get paparazzi, fireworks, lightning, faulty bulb, TV, breath, flash, and explosion. Now, there are plenty of other videos out there going more in depth into the Sidus Link app, and I'll list a couple of those down in the description. Let's talk about one of the biggest issues mentioned in the early reviews of this light, and the biggest reason why I felt the need to do this review: fan noise. In those early reviews, it was pretty much atrocious. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to compare the 200D to the Godox SL200II. It's another 200-watt LED light that's actually known for being a really quiet light. Keep in mind, I've put the mic pretty much at the worst possible position, pointing straight at the light, and I've got it about a hangs loose distance away. Also keep in mind, I've boosted the audio levels about 15 dB, just so you can actually really hear the noise well. Here's the room tone. So here is the Godox SL202 at 100% power. And here is the Aputure Amaran 200D also at 100% power. Other than a slight difference in tone, I would say the Amaran 200D isn't any louder than the Godox SL202. Firmware update alone's not going to make that much of a difference from what I heard in the earlier reviews. So my only conclusion is that Aputure must have changed out the fan. So if that's what they did, huge kudos to Aputure for making that change. A couple other little features to mention is you have this little nubbin here as your Bowens mount release, and they also included an umbrella mount here at the side of the yoke. Unfortunately, this light isn't without its issues. I am not a fan of this cheap plastic handle. I would have much preferred one of those metal ratchet style handles. I actually did find a metal ratchet handle that fit the screw head. However, that mounting screw here on the 200D is unusually long, so I couldn't get the handle to fit all the way down. I also hate that the mount on the light is actually plastic. There's a little insert inside of the mount there that's metal, which, it's good to see. But I've seen a lot of reviews where that plastic shroud was really easily cracked. Aputure's tried to address that issue by changing the area around the screw. That should help prevent the cracking from happening. Time will tell there how effective that is, but so far so good. At least the little knob here is metal. Brightness. This thing is freaking bright. I don't have a light meter, but Caleb over at DSLR Video Shooter says that the 200D has a light output of 13,200 lux at 1 meter, and the Aputure 300 only has an output of 12,800 lux at 1 meter. The big factor coming into play here is the new hyper reflector dish they're using. The 200D has this crazy bright center spot, which then falls off incredibly quickly. So what Aputure's done here is simply designed this new reflector so they can bump up their reported specs, measuring at just the super bright, small center circle. And I know Aputure's not the only company doing this. We really should start hammering these manufacturers to start reporting the actual light output of these fixtures without the reflector. That's really the only way we're going to know the true power capability of these lights. So for me, this reflector is pretty much useless. But if I'm being honest, most of the time I'm probably using this light with a softbox, as I imagine probably most of the folks this light is aimed at will be doing as well. Yeah, the build quality isn't going to blow you away. There's a fair amount of plastic here, but if you're like me and plan to keep these lights in sort of a studio setting and not do a ton of traveling with them, then they're perfectly fine. I actually like that they're a bit lighter than other lights. Just makes using them a bit easier with the lighter weight grip gear I like to use. I think the main competitor to this light at this price point is probably the Nanlite FS200 at about 280 bucks. While it's a bit cheaper, it does suffer quite a bit from fan noise. It's also a slightly different style of light as it uses a series of smaller LEDs instead of the single large chip like the 200D here. Barring the reflector issue here, I actually really like this light. With the fixes, I think Aputure has a home run of a product here. It's small, lightweight. To my ears, the fan noise has been completely addressed. It cuts a few corners here and there, but in my opinion, the Amaran 200D is one of, well, if not the best budget priced 200 watt lights you can get, hands down. If you've got any questions about the 200D, let me know down in the comments, and I appreciate you taking the time to watch. Have a good one.